Good evening, my fellow true crime addicts, and welcome to True Crime Spirits. This is my podcast where I will tell you a true crime tale while I broaden my horizons and try a new adult beverage each week. I am your host, Brandy. Now, I just want to take a second to say welcome back. As most of you know, I took a few weeks off to spend some time with my family, and even though I wasn't recording a new episode, I was still working really hard to research for more episodes to, get that content ready for recording when I came back. Like I mentioned in the Facebook video that I recorded a few weeks back, I'm also working on debuting a new channel. I don't know if it's going to be a channel, more like a little side project that I'll let you guys in on. We'll see how well it goes. Maybe I will dedicate an entire channel to it. Alright, so let's get into this. Okay, so last episode, I told you about a prank that turned deadly when a shoemaker decided that he was going to dress up as a ghost and terrorize his apprentices. For months this went on, and after this, mass hysteria just spread throughout the village, causing more and more supposed sightings of this so-called phantom. When finally Thomas Millwood, an innocent bricklayer, was mistaken for the pesky poltergeist and was murdered. Francis Smith, the culprit, was arrested, tried, and convicted for his murder. He was sentenced to be hanged and then dissected afterwards. Later, the crowd decided to commute his sentence to life. But in the end, he really only spent like 6 months in prison, and then he was released. And the question everyone asked themselves, was he at fault for the murder because he had mistaken Thomas Millwood for the ghost? Well, that question wasn't answered for like another 180 years. In the Hammersmith ghost episode, I tried a really delicious beverage. It was gin, ginger beer, and lime juice, and you just pour it over ice. It was nice. It was quite delicious. In fact, I enjoyed this drink several more times since the recording of this episode. Now tonight I'm heading to Wisconsin. We're going back in time a little bit for this case. I was doing a bit of Google searching because I've never been to Wisconsin. So my Google search was, Google, what are popular alcoholic drinks in Wisconsin? And of course, the first thing that pops up, the beer list. I'm just not feeling beer. Plus, I know I need something a little bit stronger for this case. So I just keep scrolling and I come upon a page that is exactly what I'm looking for. Top 5 most popular alcoholic beverages in Wisconsin. Perfect. Okay, so I open it up, and the first thing they have is a Bloody Mary. And I think to myself, oh, a Bloody Mary. Yeah, I could do that. And I'll just mix it up like the Wisconsins do. Or is it Wisconsinites? Anyway, so I take a look at this ingredient list. Pretty typical, same amount of booze that most Bloody Marys use. Then I get to the garnish, and I am just floored. Their Bloody Marys are served like a damn appetizer for $3. Really, though, I'm looking for something that I don't have to go shopping for. And I'm not gonna lie here, folks. I'm trying to get rid of some of the alcohol that I've accumulated for this show. And since I still have gin from the Hammersmith ghost case, I decided to try a version of the hot toddy. Very simple drink, gin, honey, water, splash of juice from an orange. Just a little something to keep you warm on those cold, cold nights. Legend tells of an Irish doctor named Robert Bentley Todd. He would order his patients to drink hot brandy, cinnamon, and sugar water. And by the 19th century, the hot toddy became the cure for the common cold. It was mostly marketed to parents so they wouldn't have to take their child straight to the doctor. I read an article written in 1837. If your child begins to snuffle occasionally, to have red eyes or a little deafness, if his skin feels dry and hot, and his breath is feverish, you have now an opportunity of doing work much faster than ever before. The first step is to avoid calling the doctor. The next step, feed the child excessive amounts, and finally, make him drink.
All right, so for this drink, since it's supposed to be warm, I made it in in a coffee mug. I put some honey in there, and then I got a larger shot of gin, and I put the hot water in first, poured the shot in, stirred it all together until the honey melted and became one with the liquid, I should say. I don't know. And then I I squeezed a half an orange in there, and then I put an orange slice in it, and it is delicious. I mean, it's a little plain for my taste. I mean, basically it's hot water and gin, but I could see how people would like to use it on a cold night, or maybe if they have like a head cold coming up. It makes you feel like really warm and tingly inside.
So tonight, I'm covering a case. This was suggested to me by my father-in-law, who actually, he went to school with this scumbag. James A. Duquette Jr. This guy, he is a grade A dick. In fact, he was actually in prison for kidnapping and rape of a female minor when he was charged for the murder of 18-year-old Anne, and I know I'm going to butcher her name, but here we go, Primusburger. And then for 14-year-old Tara Cassens. The two were murdered in 1980. They were around 1980s, I think. Anne was murdered in 1980, and then 7 years later, it was Tara Casson in 1987. Both of those cases were cold cases before they were finally solved. So we'll get into this. All right. So we have our shitbag. He's James A. Duquette Jr. He was born sometime around the early 1960s in Appleton, Wisconsin. Like I mentioned earlier, he was at the same high school as my father-in-law. He graduated in 1977. Try as I might, I really just could not find too much more about him. I did find somewhere that he has a sister who is about 5 years younger than him, named Tina. I later found that he also has another sister named Brenda, but I think I only found that out because she was actually supposed to testify for his defense later on in his trials. We'll talk about that more. His mother's name is Phyllis, and I found that his father, James Duquette Sr., died in 2000. Now, in my research, I did manage to find out that he lived in a white, nondescript house that was probably built in like 1920 or 1930. This house was located on Pine Street, just east of Prospect Avenue in Appleton, Wisconsin. I do know that now the house is painted red and it's owned by another family. He's described to be a truly sick and twisted individual. I really tried finding anything else about his childhood and home life. You know, anything that would maybe shed light onto why he is the way he is. But it just isn't out there. I have read countless newspaper articles, but the information's, really limited. And not only that, any background information on the victims is hard to come by. A part of me wonders if maybe that's because most of his victims were minors, so his crimes are mostly told out of order, because he was actually convicted of separate crimes before it was even revealed how truly terrible this monster was. However, I'm going to try to tell this story in the timeline in which it happened. So just bear with me. It'll all come around full circle. On April 6, 1980, the body of Ann Primusberger is found at the intersection of US 41 and French Road in the town of Grand Chute. The 18-year-old woman was walking home after her shift at a local restaurant when she was grabbed and forced into the back of a car near the Memorial Bridge. The investigation into her murder went cold. Detectives conducted numerous interviews and pursued plenty of potential leads, but ultimately no charges were filed. In October of 1983, James Duquette watched a young girl as she walked home from school. Because of her age, her identity is not known in court documents. She is merely known as MC. She reported that she noticed a man inside a van watching her. She said that after she turned down a street, which was bordered on one side by backlots and bushes, this man rushed up behind her, grabbed her in a bear hug, and fondled her breast. She screamed loudly, and the man fled. July 4th, 1987. Tara Caston's body is discovered July 4th, 1987, in a field in Mequon. Tara was a 14-year-old girl who lived in Cedarburg, Wisconsin. She was last seen around 8:30 p.m. on June 30th, 1987, when she left a friend's house. The two girls had spent the day shopping after she had spent some time coaching a girls' softball team. She was riding her bicycle when she was attacked. Her bike was found at the edge of a dairy farm and was hidden by the underbrush. Her battered body was found located less than 3 miles south from her home. She was nude, with sperm in the vagina, indicating sexual assault. There was just one lead in this case, and it was a van that had been seen parked along a road